Welcome to Micro Deli Sandwiches from Polymer Clay with me, Deb Jaffe. To get started, you're going to need some tools. You're going to need a smooth roller, X-Acto knife, straight blade, paintbrush, plastic cling wrap, fine black play sand, brown soft pastel, and tan soft pastel. Polymer clay colors you're going to need is a small amount of tan, pink, translucent, green, yellow, orange, tomato, red, and a drop of liquid polymer clay. If you don't have these items, it's no problem. There'll be workarounds. Hi everybody, it's time for us to make some sandwiches. So what we're making right now is we're going to make a sandwich. So I'm going to just sculpt this to be like kind of the shape of a hoagie roll. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of like making a slug, I guess. I'm not worrying about perfect because there's no such thing as perfect, but I am gonna kind of take out some chunks so that it kind of appears to be, you know, like bread that's been baked and it has like the cuts in it. So that's good enough. We're not going to get a little weird. We're not going to get too weird about that, but that's just fine here. It's just a smooth roller. I'm just trying to see it. We're going to start with that. So I'm just going to roll out the translucent. This translucent is a little crusty, which is exactly what I want, because what this is going to be the fat in the meat. So like if you've ever had like a salami, you know, like little white chunks, that's what this is going to be. So I'm just rolling it out and making kind of like grit with it. It's sticking to my surface a little bit here, so I'm just gonna pull it and crumble it up a little bit. So just crumbling. Okay, and now I'm going to just keep crumbling that a little bit. And now I'm just gonna flatten this little piece of pink here, and I'm just gonna make it look like, I guess, bologna. My bologna has a first name, it's O-S-C-A-R. No, don't sing, Deb. Okay, so I'm just kind of mixing this around so that it's not got too much of that ribbon of fat in it, but I want enough that you're going to be able to notice it. So just kind of mixing it up. And now I'm going to just mix in but I still want it to be a little bit, you know, like little speckles of translucence in there. So I'm just going to continue to just mix it up a little bit. And now I'm going to form it into like a salami shape, so kind of long and thin and a little bit more regular than it is right now. It's a little too big for my taste. I'm going to cut that in half. But you can see now, can you see that? The fat is kind of in there, and when it bakes, you'll be able to see kind of more clearer ribbons of the what's, you know, supposed to look like fat, translucence. So so I'm just kind of giving it a nice rounded back end, and I have this this liquid Sculpey here, and I'm just going to just put a little tiny bit. See that? That's just a tiny bit, and I'm just going to mix it around on there. Just make sure get it just a little bit in there so it gets a little sticky around the edge. And now I'm going to just dip it into my play sand, and the outside's going to look like cracked pepper coating. And the play sand works really well because it's a good scale. If your grit is too big, it's going to read a little less realistic because the grit's too big. So I like the play sand. It really works well. It's fine play sand, wedding sand, craft sand. So we're just going to go with that. I'm going to put another little drop of the liquid on here because I'm finding that there's areas that the sand isn't sticking so well, and this is what's going to hold the sand on, especially when you bake it. So it's like basically like, you know, paste in a project. So, okay, so that's coated. This grit is going to get into everything now, so I am going to set this guy aside, kind of out of the way so it doesn't get on my work surface. I'm going to go wash my hands. So I'm just wiping off my workstation here to get rid of some of that sandy grit. It makes a big, huge mess. It gets into everything else, but I'm not going to worry too much about it because, you know, life is too short. We don't need to worry about that stuff. Back. Okay, so we have that done. I didn't coat both pieces, but you can kind of see that now, I think. Okay, so I am going to cut my loaf in half, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about this loaf of bread here. I'm just using a little piece of plastic wrap here. So this is just cling film, and what I'm doing here is I'm just smoothing my fingerprints off of here. So you can see I'm just smoothing out my fingerprints, because once you put the pigment on, you will see fingerprints, and that's really not ideal. So once you've smoothed it out a little bit, try not to touch it, because you will see your fingerprints with the pastels. I really prefer to I prefer to use like a little piece of foam in here and put texture on the parts of the bread that... Okay, so now I'm going to use the pastel here, and I'm going to just shave a little bit of the brown off. And this is going to make it look like it's been toasted. So I'm just going to put it on my finger, and I'm just rubbing it on the top surface. You know, if you have other colors, feel free. You know, you're the boss of you. But you can see when I just run my finger over it, it avoids the cutouts, which is kind of what I want. I am going to come back and put a little bit of like a light yellow into, like this color, into the crevices of the bread, just to keep it nice and make it look like it's all intentional and stuff. And I like to use paintbrushes for this, just because I feel like I've got a little bit better control, but fingers work great also. So right in there. Toasty schmoasty, looks terrific, delicious. Okay, and I'm going to go around the side as well with the brown, but just a little less. And then if you want to get really schmancy, you can do the bottom surface a little bit. Okay, so that's my loaf of bread. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this in half so that we can start building our sandwich. So this is my loaf of bread. I'm cutting it this way, straight down, blam. Okay, so that's my open sandwich. That's the top of the loaf of bread. That's the inside. Okay. Our pepper crusted, I guess this would be like a pastrami, because it's got a nice ring of fat in it. So without getting too close and trying to not get the, the black stuff all over the place, I'm just going to make one nice clean cut off that. Okay, so that's our first slice, but I'm going to set that slice aside. You want to go kind of very thin slices, so I'm going to use my X-Acto knife. I feel like I've got a little bit more control, and I'm just cutting a very thin slice of meat. That one didn't go all the way. It's like when you go to the grocery store, you ask them to cut it thin, and then they like cut it in shreds. So that's what I'm kind of working on here. So I'm going to cut maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 slices. I'm trying to cut them as thin as I can. Okay, so that's one slice. I'm picking them up just by going through the, just picking them up that way. because you're really not going to see that little divot that you're putting into the okay, so that is the first row that you have going on over here. Okay, so that's your meat. Okay, so we're gonna put this little guy aside and get that out of the way. And once again, we have to keep cleaning up after the sand, because it really does make a mess. So having a cloth nearby that you can wipe things down is pretty essential, I'd say, at this point in the game here. Okay, so now we're gonna make some lettuce. Okay, so I'm just I have this color here, this green. This is really just a big collection of a lot of different greens that I have. So I'm flattening it with my fingers, and so then with like the back side of this paintbrush, I'm just making kind of ripply edges, so it's going to look more like a romaine. And this is salad lettuce. I'm not getting crazy about how it fits, but it's a little bit large, so I'm just going to cut it down a little bit. And I find that the lettuce works better if it's thinner and the edge is all that's kind of rippled. Once again, you're really not going to see the whole leaf once it's assembled, so you know this is just fine. So I'm just squeezing it with my fingers, and then I'm just kind of making the edge a little bit more irregular by just rolling over the end of the paintbrush. You can easily do this with your fingers. And I'm going to, again, tear this in half. It was too big. And I just think it reads a little bit better if you have more smaller pieces than one big one. So I didn't cut myself enough, but I'm just going to keep going and put lettuce everywhere and kind of make it stick out of the edges a little bit. So, okay. So that is the lettuce layer. I think I should have probably put a little bit more meat on here, because it's just not reading quite meaty enough for my taste. So I am going to go back and do that. I'm just going to add a little bit more meat. Okay. I think I'm actually going to cut these a little bit thicker and then roll them out, just because I feel like the slices aren't big enough, if you understand what I'm trying to say here. So I'm just going to roll these out. Yeah, that's better. Ooh, that's way better. Okay, and now you see how good that that stuff looks in there. That's going to be really great. It's going to look just like it's supposed to. So I'm just kind of folding it up this time, just because I want it to be like a pretty generous, meaty sandwich. So I'm just gonna keep folding that up. And if you get a little bit of that that edge sand on it, it's fine. Don't get yourself crazy about that. That's totally fine. But I do want to make these a little bit bigger, and I'm just rolling them out. And yeah, these are reading pretty good. Yikes. That one, not so much, but we're going to put the torn part on the inside, and we're just going to go, great, that's as good as it's going to get. That is a beautiful sandwich. And I'm just pushing it down my fingernail in the center. All right, it's time for that lettuce again. I'm just going to lay that back down and just keep going here. Yeah, this really does look a lot like pastrami now. I'm kind of very hungry, and it looks delicious, but I don't really eat meat, so it's all very attractive in a way that I would never eat it. But okay, all right. So that's your lettuce and your cheese, and your lettuce and your meat, and you still have a nice piece of meat left for your charcuterie. Just gonna get the sand off of my rolling pin here, and now I'm gonna roll this really, really thin. This is cheese, so we want this to be nice and thin. I don't know why things are attaching itself to my roller. That's not good. Okay, you're using a pasta machine. You're gonna run this pretty much on the thinnest setting that you can. I ran mine. Mine goes up to 6. So if yours is the same as mine, then that will be fine. So now I'm just cutting triangles of cheese. So I'm cutting it this way. I don't want them to be all pretty much the same size, but then I'm gonna give them a nice cross cut. And cheese is square, so I'm gonna try really hard to maintain my nice square pieces here. And this color I would say is like cheddar or American, that yellow American. So I'm just going to lay the cheese on the sandwich. And again, I'm going to pick this up using my knife because I just find that so much easier. And I'm just going to lay the cheese down in a nice, neat row there. And we keep going until we've got the whole sandwich cheesy, or as cheesy as you want it. This is yours, so if you don't want to use cheese on your sandwich, if you do you. Okay, so we're just going to continue and put the cheese on until our sandwich is totally cheesy. And then I just have a couple more pieces here. Okay, pick that up. So this is looking pretty yummy. Okay, so that's our cheese layer. Now I just use my finger or the back of a paintbrush or my stick tool, and I just kind of push everything down so that it stays. And now I have my top loaf of the bread, and I just put that on, and bam, we have a sandwich. See how delicious that looks? Yum. I got a little bit of grain here. So that's a sandwich. And you know, you can have things arranged however you want. I'm just pushing the cheese down a little bit. There's an awful lot of cheese on this sandwich, but I don't know about you guys, but I like a cheesy sandwich. Okay, so that's your cheese, and that's your meat for your charcuterie. And you can make this now into the rest of your charcuterie cheese. You can just form this into a triangular shape, and you can just form it into a triangular wedge, and this could be a piece of cheese for your cutting board. Okay, and I like to use the tools that I have at my disposal. So I have this this knife. It's got a nice triangular blade. We're gonna go with that. So this is cheese for a charcuterie. Okay, so there you go. And if you want to, you can cut a slice of the cheese off for the first person. Yum. Okay, so there's your charcuterie and your sandwich. Ta-da! That concludes Micro Deli Sandwiches with me, Deb Jaffe. If you have any questions, I love to respond to you. Just leave me a comment below, or you can send me an email. I really love hearing from my followers, and if you have anything that you would like me to do differently or you have a better idea for, please let me know.